My name is Henry Wallace. I'm 48 years old. I run a quiet but successful construction firm in Oregon. And I've always been the silent type, the one in the background, handling things no one wants to talk about. Ever since our parents passed, I've played the role of protector, provider, and sometimes even father to my younger sister, Claire. She's 33, artistic, outspoken, unpredictable. I admired that about her. I never married, never had kids. I poured everything into my work and into my family, especially her. And for a long time, I thought that meant something. Last spring, Claire got engaged. She was radiant with excitement, calling me every night with updates. I watched her dream unfold, like a movie I was financing quietly in the background. I offered to cover the wedding venue, $40,000, no strings attached. She refused at first, then relented, saying, "Only because you insisted. I didn't want recognition, just her happiness." That was the reward, I thought. That's how you show up when you're all the family someone has left. The email came 3 weeks before the wedding. No subject line, just, "Hey Henry, we decided to downsize. Don't come to the wedding, we're live streaming it instead. It's nothing personal, we just wanted to feel intimate." At first I laughed, out loud, thought it was a prank, then I read it again, and again. My hands trembled, the very same sister whose bills I covered through college. The one I stood by, through her last 3 breakups, the one who called me her rock. I wasn't even good enough for a chair in the back row. There was no phone call, no explanation, just that cold line. "Don't come." I didn't respond. I didn't yell. I didn't ask her why. I just sat in my office for what felt like hours, staring at the invoice from the venue still sitting on my desk, unpaid, waiting for my signature. She didn't know I hadn't paid it yet. She assumed, like always, that I'd already handled it. That's the kind of man I was, early, reliable, invisible. That night, I stared at her email, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, it was clarity, a light switch. I wasn't invited, yet I was expected to fund the fantasy. The next morning, I called the venue. I cancelled the payment. No explanations, no drama, just one sentence. "The client has decided not to move forward." And then I turned off my phone. Claire called me 5 times that day, 10 times the next. But I was busy, too busy to answer, and for the first time in my life, I felt fine being silent. Because silence, I was learning, has a sound of its own. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was restless, but because I was awake in a way I hadn't been in years. There's a strange peace that settles in when you finally stop chasing people who've never had to chase you. I thought of all the times Claire had called me in tears, asking for help, needing a rent check, asking me to mediate her messes. I always came. Always, even when it hurt, even when I had to cancel my own plans. Being there for her became my identity. But now her silence after betrayal, it was a mirror I couldn't turn away from. It wasn't just about the wedding. It was everything leading up to it. The slow erosion of respect, masked behind casual jokes. "You're like a dad," but without the dad vibes. "You wouldn't get it, you're kind of out of touch." I used to laugh with her, thought that was just her way of being playful, but now I saw it, the pattern. She'd outgrown me, not with love, but with disregard. I was a utility, not a brother. A checkbook, not a guest. The next voicemail she left was different. Her voice, cracked, trembling. "Henry, I don't know what happened at the venue. They said the payment never came through. I told everyone it was confirmed. Please, just call me. I need you." I replayed it 3 times, not because I missed her, but because I finally heard the truth in her tone. Panic, not grief, not regret. Panic. That's when I understood she never thought I had a boundary. She thought I was permanent, that I'd absorb every blow, and still show up in a tux with a smile and a check. I didn't call her back. Instead, I took a long walk through the neighborhood trail where our parents used to bring us when life was simpler. I thought about my father, a quiet man with a strong back and a soft heart. He used to say, "If you don't teach people how to treat you, they'll write the lesson themselves." I hadn't just failed to teach Claire. I'd erased the syllabus and let her write the whole book. That week, I let the silence grow, not to hurt her, but to finally listen to myself. For the first time, I didn't feel obligated to fix something that was broken. I had offered love, loyalty, money, presence, but I had never offered myself dignity, and now that's exactly what I was reclaiming, slowly, quietly, firmly. Claire kept calling. Eventually, she emailed again. A longer message this time, laced with excuses, half-truths, and a few sentences of shallow regret. "I didn't mean to exclude you," she wrote. "I just thought you wouldn't enjoy it." That sentence echoed in my chest. She didn't just reject me. She erased me from the biggest moment of her life, and then had the audacity to act like she'd done me a favor. It's amazing what you start to see once you stop explaining people's behavior for them. I read her email 4 times, but the apology I needed wasn't in there, not even close. There was no acknowledgement of what she did, only discomfort that I didn't respond like I always used to. The silence was unsettling for her, and that's when I realized the only power she ever respected was absence. My kindness never moved her. My silence did. I didn't want revenge, not in the way people think of it. I wanted clarity. I wanted to know what I had supported all these years. So I started looking deeper into the wedding plans, into the people around her, into how the entire thing was structured. What I found made my stomach turn. The payment I was supposed to send wasn't just for the venue, it was for the entire vendor package, bundled under my name. She hadn't just assumed I'd pay. She had told everyone I already had. Deposits were pending. Contracts had my email listed as the financial point of contact. She had built the wedding on the illusion of my support without even confirming it. The final insult came when I checked the guest list. My name wasn't on it, not even as a maybe. I wasn't an afterthought. I was never a thought to begin with. And yet she built it all on my back, my name, my loyalty. That's when something inside me solidified, not from anger but from realization. This wasn't a one-time betrayal. This was a blueprint, a system she had built and perfected over years. I was the silent investor in her emotional fraud. So I started preparing not for confrontation but for clarity. I called the vendors myself, one by one, calmly, professionally. I explained there had been a mistake, that I had never agreed to be financially responsible, and I would not be liable for any unpaid fees. I made sure to get written confirmations. I forwarded the emails to Claire. No message, no explanation, just a paper trail that unraveled the illusion she'd built around me. When her fiancé finally reached out, I knew the unraveling had begun. He sounded confused, embarrassed. "Henry, I thought you were—" Claire said. "I let him talk. I didn't correct him. I didn't offer comfort. I just listened." Sometimes the best revenge is letting people hear the silence they created. And in that silence, the truth echoes louder than any words ever could. I never raised my voice, never posted anything, never exposed her publicly. I just walked away from the fantasy she tried to wrap me in. And as I did, I found something better than justice. Evidence. Evidence that I was never the villain in her story. I was the foundation she exploited. And now, that foundation was gone. The fallout began like a slow leak, quiet at first, then unstoppable. A week before the wedding, vendors started pulling out. The florist cancelled due to unresolved payment issues. The caterer withdrew after receiving my written confirmation. Even the event photographer, a friend of mine from years ago, sent a polite but firm notice that he was no longer available. It was as if the infrastructure of her illusion started to rot from the inside out. And I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. I had simply stepped out of the role she cast me in, and the stage began to collapse on its own. Claire's messages became frantic. Long voicemails, emails riddled with apologies and desperate rationalizations. You don't understand. I was under pressure. I didn't think you'd care about the details. I assumed we were family, but family doesn't weaponize your reliability. Family doesn't write you out of the story and still expect you to bankroll the ending. She never once said I was wrong. Only, why are you doing this to me? That question made it clear she still didn't understand. I wasn't doing anything to her. I had just stopped doing everything for her. Her fiancé, to his credit, tried to salvage things. He offered to personally reimburse some of the deposits, told me he was blindsided by what she'd done, that he didn't realize how much of the wedding relied on money that was never hers to offer. I believed him. You can tell when someone is embarrassed for the right reasons. But I told him calmly, this isn't about the money, this is about respect. And she spent every drop of mine before I ever saw the bill. 3 days before the wedding, Claire cancelled the ceremony. She told her friends it was a private decision, a postponement for personal reasons. But I know better. The venue was gone. The vendors were gone. The fantasy had been drained of its funding. And without me, she had nothing to stand on. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just exhaled, quietly. Because when you stop being someone's crutch, you finally get to see if they ever intended to stand on their own. People started calling me, mutual friends, extended family, asking if I knew what had happened. I gave no details, just said it wasn't my wedding to attend. The restraint wasn't for her, it was for me. Revenge isn't about punishment, it's about release, and I had finally released the part of myself that needed to be needed. The night her cancelled wedding would have taken place, I poured a glass of scotch and sat on my porch alone. No phone, no noise, just the stillness of a man who had finally stepped out of someone else's script. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't holding up anyone else's world. I was simply standing in my own. The days that followed were strangely quiet, like walking through the aftermath of a storm you didn't cause but survived. Claire didn't call again. Not after the cancellation. Not after the silence. And I didn't chase her. I didn't need to, because something had shifted so deeply in me. There was no going back to who I used to be. The man who apologized for setting boundaries, who begged for scraps of gratitude just to feel included in someone else's story. Word got around, of course. People pieced it together slowly. The questions started small. Did Claire really uninvite you? Then bolder. Wait, you were paying for it all. But I didn't defend myself. I didn't tell my version. I simply said, she made her choice. I made mine. There's a dignity in understatement, in letting others arrive at the truth without shoving it down their throats. And that dignity finally was mine. I focused on my work. I invested in my home. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during years of being her emotional emergency contact. And I realized how much of my life had revolved around keeping hers from falling apart. It was like waking up from a trance. Everything was sharper, simpler, free of obligation. I no longer feared being misunderstood. I had nothing to prove and nothing to hide. A month later, I received a handwritten letter from Claire. Short, sloppy, no return address, just a folded note inside that read, "You could have just talked to me." That line broke something in me. not out of sorrow, but out of finality. It was proof she still didn't get it. After everything, she thought the problem was communication, not betrayal, not manipulation, not entitlement, just a lack of conversation. And that told me all I needed to know. I didn't respond. I folded the letter back and tucked it into a drawer I never open. Not out of anger, not out of hate, but because some wounds don't need more words, they need closure. And that's what this was. Not revenge, not punishment, just closure. Earned, quiet, absolute. When people ask me now if I still talk to my sister, I tell them the truth. No, but I wish her well, and I do. Not out of grace, out of growth. Because peace isn't something someone gives you after they apologize. It's something you give yourself when you stop waiting for it. I've learned that silence can be a sanctuary or a sentence. It depends on whether you choose it or you're forced into it. In my case, I chose it, and in that silence, I found a kind of peace I didn't know I was allowed to have. No more double-checking my phone. No more walking on eggshells around Claire's moods, or pretending I didn't notice the way she used love as leverage. I had finally stepped out of that cycle. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with resolve. The freedom didn't come in one big moment. It came in layers, subtle shifts in how I showed up for myself. I started waking up earlier, not because I had to fix someone's crisis, but because I wanted to enjoy the stillness. I took long drives with no destination. I invited people over for dinner, not to impress, just to connect. And for once, I was living a life that wasn't defined by what someone else needed from me. I never told anyone about the full extent of what happened. Not the vendors, not her fiancé, not even my closest friends. The story wasn't theirs to carry, it was mine. And holding it quietly became part of my healing, because sometimes the most powerful response is not to expose someone, but to become someone they can no longer reach. Eventually, I heard she moved to another city, started over, maybe got married in a courthouse or another rented venue, this time funded by someone else. And that's fine. Everyone deserves a new beginning. But I wasn't her foundation anymore. I wasn't her fallback, and that, more than anything, was my freedom. What hurt most wasn't that she excluded me. It was realizing that she never really saw me as family, not in the way that counts. But what healed me was understanding that I didn't need her validation to define my worth. I was never just the man who paid the bills. I was the man who walked away when dignity demanded it. And now, when I sit on my porch in the evenings, there's no weight on my chest, no buzzing phone, no echo of disappointment. Just the quiet hum of peace. The kind you earn, not by winning but by walking away with your soul intact. And in that silence, I don't feel like I lost a sister. I feel like I finally came home to myself.